Hi, I'm Chody Shifter, professional racing driver, and when I'm not racing vehicles, I'm usually sitting on the downstairs toilet or in a motorway services on my smart telephone, sifting through ad after ad of interesting vehicles from caringclassic.com. You should try it too. There's many to choose from, and you can even sell them free on classifieds or off of an auction. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Smith & Sniff is sponsored by caringclassic.com.
I'm Johnny Smith.
I'm Richard Porter.
And this is Smith & Sniff, a podcast in which two friends talk about cars and many other things. Workshop stress poos. That's something that's at the top of my list of the agenda.
I'm sorry?
Garage, workshops, garages where you go to have your car repaired or something like that.
Yeah.
If it doesn't have a posh reception and flat screen TV and coffee maker, it's such a dangerous place to need a number two. And I was in that scenario recently.
I just wouldn't. I mean, I suppose
it's
an emergency.
There was no chickening out was not an option. Do
you mean one of those incredibly small loos where everything seems to have oily fingerprints on it?
Yeah, because nobody washes their hands because there's no point, because they know that they're going straight back out to carry on doing the gearbox on a Subaru. So they just go, well, what's a little bit of piss between friends? And so they just... well, that's the reality of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so therefore, I mean, a stressy, grubby workshop poo. And I was filming. I'm not going to say where I was filming, but I was filming as well. I didn't want... We've said this in previous casts. You didn't want the amount of time you were away to be obvious that you were logging on. So...
it's a funny thing, isn't it? In the sort of evolution of humankind, that we have probably moved on from many hang-ups and social awkwardness that say the Victorians were all about that, weren't they? And things, and we've very much moved on. And to the extent, I was thinking about this the other day, because I was like, I've never told my children not to put their elbows on the table, because it just seems sort of doesn't matter anymore. I mean, I might remind them if they were going to a royal banquet or something. But, I remember my parents always like, elbows off the table. It was a very important thing somehow, and yet it's not. It just sort of isn't. Yeah. Although, good manners are nice, but there's certain details that seem to have gone by the wayside. But
it's a bit like using a fork upside down. My mum used to tell me to use the fork upside down, but you don't shovel the garden with the fork upside down, do you? Because it's...
Oh, I see. I thought you meant like you were flicking food into your mouth with the handle of the fork.
No, you absolute diggling.
What kind of technique is this?
No. Oh my gosh. Only you would think that, you spoon.
But, effectively that's what you're using it as. But I just think it's weird that one thing we haven't moved on from, even though everybody does it in the world, from His Majesty King Charles III to you and me and everyone in between, that we still have this desire not to be busted for having a poo.
Busted for having a poo. Yeah,
which is absurd,
dirty workshop stress poo is a thing, I think. It's got to be done. It's not a good environment. It's grubby.
No.
You're unsure of the quantity of roll required. There's many elements to the stress.
One of the worst loos I've ever had to use was in a garage environment, now you mention it.
Oh,
where it was... when you just don't want to touch anything because it's it's disgusting. Yeah. But, I mean, not disgusting as in like there's been a dirty protest. It's oily and greasy, but also like the loo seat was completely broken.
Yes.
And there was no loo roll and no soap and no towel or anything.
Oh, did you have to do a crouch cable?
Well, I didn't. I only needed a wee, thank God. But it was just the state of the place. And I was like, but people work here.
Yeah.
It would have been better just to go outside and go around the back of the building.
I've done that before.
What, at a garage?
Yeah. I've done that at a place before where it was just so despicable. I mean, you just felt so dirty the minute you walked to the room. You're like, I'm just going to go outside and find somewhere easy. Yeah. By the way, if you can hear, you probably can hear one of the tortoises battering its way around because they're actually looking outside at the snow and getting a bit confused because it's snowing here. It's lovely and idyllic.
Bad conditions for a tortoise, presumably. They don't want to go out in the snow.
Bad tortoise conditions. I'd say good advertising potential for BMW xDrive, which obviously was launched in the UK off the back of that year where we had 2 snowy periods, if you remember. Everyone in a BMW didn't get anywhere, and then BMW just went, right, everybody buy xDrive, and now that's why you see lots of xDrives, it seems.
I've always wondered about that, because there was a period, particularly, it seemed like every other 3 Series that you saw on the motorway, which I'm guessing are company cars a lot of the time.
It's all cars. It's all company cars.
It was an xDrive.
Yeah.
But I wondered did BMW, perhaps to stave off that reputation they have for not being good in slippery conditions, did they do some deals specifically on xDrive cars? Because for the truth is, most people buying a 320D or whatever don't need 4-wheel drive.
Of course they don't. It was around about 2009 from memory. I remember because I took all day to get to Heathrow Airport for a really important job that I needed to fly away on. And I was in a Jag XF on 20s. I remember it being a very challenging challenge. But, the BMW is just pirouetting everywhere. But, I think that same year, after, snow being on the ground for 3 or 4 days, BMW just rinsed out the xDrive thing. And it makes me angry, because it's that whole thing of people thinking that 4-wheel drive automatically means that they have snow-based invincibility, when you just want, because I've seen people in Audi Quattros have massive understeer crashes, because they're still doing 30 and a 30 when it's snowing, and you just want to pick them up and go, it's about the tyres, you understand that, don't you? It's not about the 4-wheel drive.
Well, that's funny, because I was in an Audi S4 once on just very wet roads, but in winter, and had a real moment, not driving like a dick, but just on a tight bend, it understeered like an absolute bastard.
Awful.
And after that, I just didn't trust it. And it was on Pirellis from memory. And at the time, I had a Seat Leon as a long-termer from Evo, and that was also completely rubbish in that kind of weather, and was also on Pirelli. So I think VW Group had got some job lot of Pirellis that weren't good. They were great in the drive.
That's how they marketed them.
In the wet. Yeah.
The Pirelli, not good.
Yeah. Anyway, well, we've oscillated from pooing in a garage to tyres. So really,
well, we were talking about driving like an absolute stroker, and I have been actually in recent times driving like a bit of a stroker, encouraged by the vehicle that I was testing. I've got a lot of actual cars to talk about in this podcast, but I don't want to offend anyone by going into too much detail, so I'll sprinkle a few poo jokes here and there. Yeah, and, if that's okay.
Also talk about accidentally farting in a mobile phone shop intermittently as well.
We had a really incredible curry one night after a shoot this week, because it was the only place that was open was a curry house, and I drove all the way back with the windows up. I was basically hotboxing myself. The BMW M3 Touring, Spalty Touring. Yeah, I've had that for a week because I wanted to drive it because there's been a lot of fanfare about it. But I used it in the introduction for my Beast video, driving. I saw the Rolls Beast. So
I want to talk to you about the Beast in a minute. But
let's talk about the Beast in a minute. Yeah,
M3 Touring.
Yeah.
Now I have a problem with this car.
Okay.
In as much as you're right, there has been a lot of fanfare about it, but there's been a lot of fanfare from car journalists. And I feel like this is one of those cars that gives a lot of, particularly the sort of Helmsright end of the car journalism spectrum, an absolute stiffy. And I don't think it's a relevant car at all. I think they're going to sell about 7 to people on piston heads. No car journalists will buy one because, as we know, car journalists not necessarily flush with cash to blow. I mean, it's 80-something grand base, but then as soon as you go, can I have windows and maybe doors to get in, they go, that's 100 grand. So let's say it's a 100 grand car.
It is. Well, 86 base in it, so it's, yeah.
But then I think I've seen them on Auto Trader, people are trying to get over for them because they think it's a hot car because they've accidentally read Auto Car and Evo too much. But it's I think the carbon pack and stuff Do you have to add the carbon ceramic brakes as well? Possibly, I forget. But
I can bring up the configurator if you really want me to go full.
It seems like it's pretty much, it's going to, 90 to 100 grand car, so it's expensive.
Yeah.
So no car journalist is actually going to buy it, but fast estates generally get car people quite excited, don't they? But I just think, now, of course, I have to also confess I haven't driven it, so I'm talking out of my hat, and I gather it's really good. I'd like to hear your opinion of it. Do you think it's ace?
It's an exceptionally quick car. It's a scalpel fast machine. It's a Sharpie beat. 0 to 62 in 3.5 seconds, I think. And so,
is it?
Yeah, it's got some firepower. And you can dial out the X drive and make it more rear wheelie. There's almost too many, like a lot of, this is not exclusive to Beamer, there's almost too many different settings. You get lost in settings and you forget where you were and what you maybe liked and what you didn't like. It's like it's the restaurant with a 16-page menu kind of thing, like we've said before. You just go, I just don't know where to start. I'd rather just have two settings, like normal and absolute M Sport, arseweed. And I drove it in absolute arse rinseweed most of the time. Proper. I think it's absolute stroker mode is what I would probably call it, where you're just constantly tromboning everywhere because it's...
Does it trombone?
Yeah, I was on it in many places in this car, and because it's so good, it's a very satisfying car to drive. And here's the thing, Richard and listeners. There's two. I mean, we don't even need to talk about the front of it because we know that that's ugly. And the people that are saying they're coming around to it, that's a bit like, I don't know, waking up with a horse and realise that you've done things that you shouldn't have. And you just go, do you know what it's like?
I've had a few weeks to reflect on it, and I don't see that there's a problem with horse love anymore. Yeah. And you go, no, you've been brainwashed by too much of
horse love.
With a horse.
Like
the front of that car is disgusting.
It is disgusting.
It's pretty rubbish. I just think that generally, as with a lot of modern BMWs, the grille is almost like leaving a dog turd near where you're having a picnic to draw the flies away from your food. The sort of the design of a lot of the rest of the car is not good either, in a more subtle but equally shit way. The way that sort of the body surfacing and things that used to be so good on BMWs, I think it's just sort of really meandering and weak.
Do you?
It's just not a nice looking car. Yeah, the 3 Series is not the worst example. 3 Series is okay, but it's not brilliant. And I just think the grille is just kind of like it's just them going, "Whoa, look over there," to distract from the fact that they've completely lost their way design wise.
It's a great idea. I hadn't thought of it like that.
It's why I don't mind the new 7 Series. Although again, the grille is disgusting, but the rest of it is actually really tight. I think it's quite a good. Quite relatively minimalist for BMW at the moment. So
I quite like the rest of the car, as in the design of it. I like the bum.
Do you? Okay,
I think what this boils down to is everyone's milking themselves over the fact that there's an M3 estate. But the 3 Series was never a great estate. We have to remember that. It was never a class-leading estate car.
Yeah.
It's always in a small estate car. Yes, twin tailgate, that is useful, great. But the 5 was always the genuinely useful estate car. So,
but also, I've heard again, car journalists when they've finally able to get their hand out the front of their trousers, talking about how it's like, at last, I can't believe it's taken BMW this long to do a 3 Series, an M3 touring, and it's like, well, there's a reason for that. It's because there's no business case. Because it's not amazing as an estate, and if you want an M3, you'd probably actually, if you want a proper sporty, smallish M car.
Sorry, say that again. Say that again, Richard.
Sportsy.
Sports.
So, I don't. That's the thing. It's in fact talking of you. Flicking food into your mouth with the handle of a fork. It's that. I think what people get really, really excited about is this idea it's a sort of do-everything car. It's practical, but it's fast.
Yes, the Audi RS. It's the Audi RS Avant effect, which I've thrived on.
But that's sort of, you go, well, do you really want something that does everything? Because otherwise, why don't you just eat all your food with a spork? Sometimes it's good to separate out functions. And I know there's that sort of, that fallacy of going, well, just if you want a sporty car, get an Elise and then get a really good estate car or a good SUV or something. Don't try and combine the two. But obviously, it is quite nice to just have one thing you have to insure and put petrol in and stuff.
No, I disagree.
What, you'd go for the sort of multi
I think
approach?
if you've got 90 grand, I definitely have multiple cars. I'd have cars that are more fit for purpose. Why I don't want to drive a 500 horsepower car every day for work and for schooling and commuting and all of that, because I just think you're having too much champagne for breakfast every morning. Then it becomes the norm.
Well, I was going to ask, you said you've been driving in quite a press-on way.
I drove it like a rose-jointed winkle picker for the whole time, whatever they are. And does
the car make you do that? Is it one of those cars that it's hard to drive it gently?
Yeah, because it's so quick and able. It's the M spoked confidence. It just gives you that amazing sort of. I'm puffing my chest out as I'm saying it. It gives you that incredible. It's the equivalent, I guess, from what I've been told. Maybe it's just having an absolute. Ashtray full of cocaine and going into a nightclub and basically just picking out women and just talking to them and dancing with them, even though they're not interested in you. Because you think you've got the it factor, but what you have is the drugs in your face factor. Which actually this has. It's got the druggy face, as we know, doesn't it? It's got the cocaine Dyson nose. So
that's just reminded me of a friend of mine years and years ago went to a house party a long time ago, back when it would have just been quite normal for a lot of people at the party to be smoking and doing it in the house. And my mate fell asleep on the sofa with his head next to a brimmed ashtray. And when he was sort of too drunk to move. And when he woke up, the ashtray was still there with loads of cigarette butts in it, but no loose ash. And he realised he'd inhaled all of the ash.
What?
In his sleep.
He'd been breathing it all in.
Yeah, he said he felt.
What basically he's basically a breathing fireplace cleaner,
just like a little hand vac going around, but just taking all. At least the butts were still in the ashtray. If the ashtray had been completely empty, I think he'd have had to go to hospital as a precaution. But yeah. He sucked up a load of ash.
I told you my student
can't be good for you.
My student house when I was at university. Quite a few of the guys I lived with, house shared with, were smokers, because such was the times, being the 90s. And the ashtray was one of those ceramic Shire horses that you get from a charity shop, which sits on a windowsill. You know the ones?
Yeah.
And someone had accidentally dropped it and smashed one of its hooves off, and they used to tap ash into its hoof and until it was completely full of ash, and then they'd shake it over the bath.
Over the bath.
It was so grotty. It was so grotty.
That is grotty.
Yeah, so there would always be this horse, this ceramic paw horse on its side, obviously would have been owned by a proud dead person. When it came from a charity shop, got dropped instantly, but that got repurposed.
A smoking horse. So more fancy a cigarette? Yeah, I'll fetch the horse.
Honestly, it used to live in the front room. It was really gross. It used to stink, as you can imagine. Poor thing.
Yeah. Well, now, look, guys, listen.
Look. Here's the situation.
I have a counterpoint to your M3 Touring. If you have about $100,000 to spend on an ultimately quite irrelevant and stupid car that's slightly out of step with the times, I've just been driving the Jag F-Pace SVR edition 1988, which is this special they've done to commemorate their Le Mans win in 1988. So it's F-Pace SVR with this purple paint, which is very, very, very deep purple, to the point where all week that I had it, people kept going, looks quite smart in black. That. And I go, no, it's not black.
Yeah, I've seen it.
What? It's purple. It's very, very, very deep purple.
I thought
it looks great.
I thought it was black, because unless it's sunny, you can't tell.
This is the thing. It looks black, and it got to the point where, like, my son, I went, do you know what colour this car is? And he went, yeah, it's black. I went, no, it's not. It's purple. He went, no, it's not. And I went, it is. It's purple. He went, it's not, though. I mean, honestly, it is. If you saw it in sunlight, you'd see it's purple. He went, it's Daddy, it's not purple. And I went, I'll bet you £5 it's purple. And he was like, okay, I'll bet you £5.
Oh, amazing, amazing. And how old is he? You're betting real cash with your...
He's about to turn 9. So it's fine. I didn't take him up on it, because then ultimately I couldn't prove it, because I was like getting my phone torch, and you can just about see sort of purple pigment in it. But it's a great colour because it does mostly look black, and then you just get it on a brighter day, it suddenly has this purple to it, and it looks quite cool. And it's got very, very light gold wheels on it. And again, this is a nice touch. They're not in-your-face ostentatious.
It's a shame that 1988 edition, does it come with a sort of Clarion cassette head unit? And does it come with some a slight, the sort of baggy pleated leather door cards that was fashionable?
Yeah. Also, the seats are made out of the material they'd used to make a very silky promotional bomber jacket.
Oh, wow. That was the
team. I mean, they've no grip in the corners at all, but they look tremendous.
Do you get swept off the seat, do you, when you're sort of...
Yeah, any input whatsoever, accelerating, braking, you're in the footwell.
It's like when you're sitting in the shallow end at a leisure pool and they put the wave machine on. And,
yes, it's like that. Literally, it's physically impossible to keep your buttocks in the same place for more than a second.
Amazing.
It's like that. But it's a cosmetic job for which they're charging something like 20 odd grand more than the standard car, but they're only making, I think,
8.8 of them.
Actually, I think I was just looking at this. It says they're going to make one of 394. I don't know if that's just for the UK, maybe, but that seems an odd number. Anyway, it's a tremendous looking thing. It's a contrast to the BMW, which is a disgusting looking thing. This is a really, really nice looking car. The extra detailing in the colour, and they've blacked out some of the details, and then some of them are in a very light gold, and it's all quite tasteful. And the number of people who admired this car in the week that I had it, including my wife, who's quite a stern critic of car design, and she came home and she went, "I hope that's my birthday present." And I was like, "I'm afraid it's not." She was like, "I'd like it to be." And I was like, "Well, then you're going to have to give me £101,550. But it's... Do you remember we drove the...
We did.
SVR.
Yeah, we did a vid. Yeah, we did a vid. It was good. I mean, I've said this before, but it's almost like if you're in the market for a fast, capable SUV, it's better than all the Land Rover, Range Rover products.
Well, it is. And the thing is, do you remember when we drove it? The one thing, we were quite amused by the fact that it felt slightly unruly sometimes.
Absolutely.
Well, they've fiddled with it. They've done a bit of recalibration of various things, I believe, and they've taken that edge off and just given it a bit more polish, and it is absolutely fucking spectacular. I mean, I know you're not a big SUV fan, but
I don't know where you've got this from.
Nobody needs a 540 odd horsepower SUV. That's absolutely clear. It's stupid, but accepting that, it goes down a road like nothing else I've driven except possibly the Porsche Macan Turbo, and it's like the ride is not bad at all. It's firm, but it's comfortable, and yet
comfortable.
It goes through corners like an absolute stabbed rat. It's spectacularly good, but it's got a bit of give in it, so you've got that sense that you know where you are with it. It's not just been set up like a racing car to be stiff and flat. It moves about a bit, but in a really sort of helpful way. So you can go across country in it like an absolute maniac. And I thought it's an incredible bit of setup work. And that engine, which is the same engines in my Range Rover, but noisier and better in a nice way, it's mega. And it's got it's an 8-speed auto, but it's got really nice proper metal paddles on it, rather than the usual Jag cheapo plastic clicky ones. So you can play tunes on the gearbox. The engine, you can be lazy, or you can really get on it and be in exactly the gear you want to be. It's a hugely amusing car. Totally stupid, really expensive, but I absolutely adored it.
Well, look, guys, you're talking about expensive, stupid. We've talked about the M3 long roof.
Here's my Jerry Springer thought for the day would be that, given the choice... now, again, caveat, haven't driven the M3 Touring. I'm sure it's...
Cravat? Are you throwing a cravat into the mix?
I'm throwing a cravat into the ring.
Yeah, okay.
And, but yeah, 100 grand to spend on a stupidly fast, stupidly powerful, but slightly practical car. I'm going with that Jag every time, not least because it doesn't look absolutely hideous. And I think it's less twatty as well, if I'm honest.
Gosh, that's a statement. Well, I tell you what I'm going for, Richard. I think you know where I'm going with this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going for a fairly ugly fronted rapid estate car that's ludicrous. I'm going for the Beast, because that's what it's called, the Beast. And,
yes.
I've got to drive that car the other week, and Weirdly, I woke up this morning and checked my Google Analytics. Don't worry, that's not the start of a blues song. And I woke up this morning, check my Google Analytics, it was trending. It wasn't trending, but it had done in 7 hours. It's had over 100,000 views, which is a PB for my YouTube channel. Yeah.
Wow.
So the 70s is well and truly alive.
We had so many messages from people going, why didn't you talk about the Beast? You've got to talk about the Beast because it's coming up for auction on Car and Classic. Why don't you talk about it? And part of the reason was because you were going off to drive it and put it on the Late Break Show. So, But we now can talk about it. If you haven't seen Johnny's video driving the Beast, please go now, or listen to the rest of this and then go and watch it. I have questions though, and the main one is, is it? I got the impression from, the noise. The noise is, first of all,
it's absolutely deafening. Someone summed it up.
Is that an accurate picture? Because obviously microphones can give a false impression to some extent of the sort of the noise in that car, but it seemed to me like it was deafening.
Well, we did a microphone check, and then the car basically said "Hold my beer" as the meme would be, and it was just every microphone was just wilting and dying. But it's someone that summed it up perfectly in the comments. Go, why does it sound like a cement mixer full of hammers?
It does, though, doesn't it?
It does. Because it's the transmission that makes this horrendous clatter. Honestly, like someone's undone the prop shaft on the car at great speed, and it's basically flailing the floor pan of the car. It sort of sounds like that, but it's to do with John Dodd, the owner creator's step-up transmission. Adaptation, but it does make this really odd. When you've accidentally, picture the scene, guys. You've put some clothes in the washing machine, but you've accidentally left a bunch of keys and a handful of pebbles in one of the pockets of your favourite trousers.
And an anvil.
It kind of sounds like that. But I have to say, you don't hear the V12 until you're giving it some RPM, and to give it some RPM, of course, it's geared so high. It idles at 150 RPM, which is just daft, and I think it maxes out at 2.5. So it's a very alien concept. The engine note bears no resemblance to the wheel speed. But I was just...
Oh, really?
No, not really. No, I felt it was so daunting to drive it and get insurance on it. Yeah. And it has such a complex starting procedure. And it's one of those cars which just wants to start and be stretched and go. It doesn't want to hang around. But I was so excited. It's a real hairs on the nape situation.
This was going to be my question, having watched the video, is would I be right in thinking it's rather demanding to drive?
It is quite demanding. I think the main thing is you're aware of the weight and how to stop or change direction if you need to, if someone's dithering or just being a bit of a dick in front of you. I drove it 3 times, each time for about 15 minutes. Yeah. And the third time I drove it, I felt that I suddenly felt quite a little bit more confident, to the point where if they said you need to do 100 miles in this car now, I probably would.
Oh, really?
There were a lot of similarities with like old school American muscle cars.
Yeah, so, I saw you saying in the vid like the steering was a bit like your Charger.
Yeah, steering was fine. Yeah, they warned me about the steering. They said it's awful, and I was like, no, it's not awful. That's not that bad.
you talk about awful, son. I'll show you awful.
Yeah.
Well, because this is the thing. You said in the video, it's warming up now, but I think you were sort of talking about yourself as well as the car, like you getting your eye in with it. But
yeah,
I got that feeling from your in-car, apart from the fact that it was deafeningly loud and you probably were struggling to be heard.
I was scared.
You didn't say an awful lot relative to outside the car, and I thought, he's concentrating.
Yeah,
that's he's taking a lot of brain power just to keep that thing. Does it wander, right? Or is it pretty track pretty straight?
It tracks relatively straight, and visibility is amazing because it's a 70s car, and it's a big estate car, isn't it? So it's a shooting brake. It's actually quite easy to position on the road, but of course everyone behaves differently around you, and when the car's idling in traffic and stuff, it's pluming out smoke because it's what I believe to be the case is the Merlin engines were assembled with quite sloppy tolerances. So it does burn oil at low RPM when it's not trying, because that's not what they're designed to do. They're designed to be get up to 2,000 RPM or whatever and just sit there for hours and hours and hours and hours. So doing what we're doing in that car on that day, really, it's not an enjoyable process for the Merlin. So it was huffing out a bit of oil. Some people are going, "Oh, the engine's fucked. It needs rebuilding." It doesn't. It just needs to be used. It needs to just get on the M1 and do 180 miles an hour for an hour.
Is it? I mean, at the speeds you were driving at, does it feel fast if you clog it? Does it pick up, or is it a bit more there's a bit more inertia to it?
It's all about the torque. It's not, because you're listening for the RPM and it makes no difference. It just suddenly, I had no idea I was doing 70 at one point. The chase car said, you're doing 70 all along there. I said, was I?
Oh,
because the speedo's completely inaccurate. So I was just concentrating on how it felt, whether I could stop in time, and all the basics. But I went past 4 cup cars.
Speed's just a state of mind.
I went past 4 cup cars at one point, and I thought they've scrambled the troops and they're going to circle in and get me. They're going to throw the stinger down and reel me in.
And the beast will just mash it into the road and carry on.
Yeah. It was really exciting. You know, we get to drive a lot of cars in this. And I got the blessing of the family, and I felt really privileged to do that. And they actually phoned me last night when I was driving back from a job when the video went live, and they said, we've all watched it as a family and we really enjoyed it. We think that you got across our dad's bizarre, eccentric mind, and the fact that the car was an extension of him. Because he was a bit of a madman, really.
Yeah, I had some lovely archive photos and footage in there in your film as well, which sort of sets the scene. Well, the thing that I can't get over, having then seen your in-car and the noise and clearly the amount of concentration it needs to drive, is the fact that he used to drive it all over Europe.
Yeah, he drove it loads. He used to drive it loads, but and he drove it right up into his death at 90 years old. So he died just before Christmas.
Bloody hell.
And he was still driving it.
I mean, could you imagine coming back from Spain in it? Because that's what he did. He said he used to come back to the UK to have it MOT'd.
He did. He used to bring it back to the UK because he always wanted to keep its MOT history up, and always wanted to keep the V5, the UK V5, which said Rolls-Royce. It still does, says Rolls-Royce Coupe, 27,000cc. So for him, I think it was him. It was real, real dogged stubbornness when he lost the court case to Rolls, to say you've made me take the grill off, but you're not having the car. And that's.
I just thought that court case is so weird in that it's just one eccentric bloke sticking your grill onto a one-off car. He's not selling. He's not
monetising it. Is it? No.
I thought it seemed a bit excessive.
Well, maybe it was just the old school stuffiness of the brand. I mean, if I actually hoped, weirdly, I spoke to Rolls-Royce a few days ago, and I actually wondered it'd be great if Rolls were to buy it and do the kind of like "we're sorry" story, and "don't worry, we'll look after this," and actually do look after it, don't crush it, and then send out a press release saying, "Finally, we've caught the beast and we've put it down."
Yes, justice is ours.
Yeah, but it would be great if they were to be honest, the auction is on as we speak. We'll put the link to it in the show notes. But
yes.
I'm hoping whoever buys it at the auction actually does allow people to hear it and see it, so it doesn't get locked away in a private vault or anything. Sorry, that scratching in the background. My tortoise is doing a full rallycross launch, 4-wheel drive launch on some loose cardboard. You know that thing, bless him, with the late Ken Block, where didn't he get attached the Hoonicorn Mustang to a chain and then do a full throttle launch where all 4 tyres were just burning, and then they released the chain, didn't they? That's kind of what's going on here, but in tortoise world and on cardboard.
Okay. I've just checked. We're recording this on Friday, and the auction is running so it ends on the 16th of March, Thursday.
Can someone buy it?
It's currently at £50,000 with 13 bids.
Well, I think that's close to the reserve, you know.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. But bidding has been, I mean, this is, because it only went up yesterday.
Yeah, it went up yesterday, about 2 hours before I put my video out.
Bidding started at 25 grand and is now already at 50. 11 people are currently bidding. So yeah, it's really interesting.
I'm excited. Lots of people are saying Jay Leno should buy it, and actually John Dodd did know Jay Leno.
Did he?
Yeah, Jay invited him over to the States to look at his aero engine cars, and John went over.
Ah, nice.
So, yeah,
I suppose Jay Leno would be the perfect buyer in that he's got the resources to keep it going.
Exactly, and he understands
it.
it.
The battle, I imagine. Yeah,
he understands it, and he will exhibit it periodically. And all. I'll tell you what was mad about it was the sort of like the Bitzer nature of it, with all the rear lights being Mark 1 Capri, headlights being mostly Mark 1 Capri or other British car derivatives, bumpers being Rolls Shadow, gear shifter blatantly out of a Ford Folds from the 70s, and the interior was so 70s. Even more 70s on the outside. I mean, the whole car couldn't be more 70s.
I like the fact you used a shot of it on the cover of Custom Car magazine.
Yes,
because I look at that. I look at the beast, and for some reason, it is inextricably the most 70s thing ever. Possibly.
I think it's incredibly 70s.
Chuck a rally chopper in the boot and you're done. And also, but that's the thing, because of that sort of Custom Car Association, and for people who don't know, Custom Car magazine, very big in the 70s, car modding mag. I forever, Custom Car, if it hasn't got the beast on the cover, I always imagine Custom Car has like a sort of metal flake painted marina estate on slot mags with a topless woman on top of it.
Yes, with the back jacked up and lots of CB radio aerials.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like a forest. The topless woman is having to sort of fight her way through a forest of CB aerials. That's Custom Car magazine, and that is in fact the 70s car modding in Britain.
Can Jag do a 1980 SVR edition, please?
Edition 1977.
Yes,
and it's covered in CB aerials.
Yes, the back's jacked up ever so high.
And then I don't know what the seats would be made of. The seats would have to be those sort of furry, wouldn't they? Like
angel
furry
hair.
Seat covers.
Angel hairs.
Angel hair.
So it has an angel hair headlining. And it would have a CB radio in the console, which is also good for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto.
Well, no, hang on. This is a premium car. I think it needs to have a CB radio for every occupant. So there's CBs on the seat backs as well for the people in the rear.
Oh, are they all hanging off the ceiling? So there's just lots of cables just dangling down. So everyone can just reach
curly
down.
Cord everywhere. Yes, it's like vines hanging from the forest canopy. It's just CB cords everywhere hanging from the roof.
This is where Jag are going wrong at the moment. This is the edition they need to make, and it's purple metal flake, but like proper Cadbury's purple metal flake.
Oh, there'll be no question about whether the car is purple or not.
That'd be amazing.
And 20, I can't remember what that car's on now. 22s
goes back to 14s.
Oh, you want to go down?
No, I tell you what. To keep the 22s on the back, but we have to go 14s or 15s on the front for extra rake. Yeah, and there would be an
they can
airbrushed,
still be gold, but
there'd be an airbrushed montage on the bonnet of Norman Dewis. Ian Callum.
William Lyons has got to be in there, right?
He
founded the company, for heaven's sake. Bit of respect.
Yeah, sorry. Lyons would be there, and Lyons would be like a sort of Marvel superhero. So both hands would be, palms would be facing the sky and be holding up, but he'd be extremely muscular, way more than he actually was. And he would,
because he got a cape.
He's got a cape on, and those sort of Roman gladiator shoes, which are just very strappy. The ones. So he's got them on, but
and a cane. Can he have a cane, or a staff? Staff.
He's holding a staff, absolutely a staff, and there might be some lightning strikes from the sky, of which he's holding aloft.
Yeah,
and out of the sky will come a mythical creature that does look, indeed, like a sort of flying jaguar cat.
Oh,
just imagine that, but of course the bonnet's carbon, so it's muralled carbon.
Oh,
which has not been seen before.
I mean, this is, you're justifying your $100,000 cost immediately.
Listen, let's make
this level of this objet d'art.
Objet d'art, mate. It's objet d'art, isn't it?
It's an object of dart, mate. I'm just wondering though, if it was airbrushing, that perhaps for the really classy effect, we should get it done by one of those people who does the side of Dodgems.
Oh, Funfair airbrushes.
So it is Sir William Lyons, but it sort of looks like someone's drawn Sir William Lyons onto a potato. There's a resemblance, but not quite enough. You're left guessing for a few minutes.
Well, it's like, is that William Lyons or is that Roy Orbison who's fallen down a flight of stairs? I just can't quite tell.
Because Enzo Ferrari had an accident. Yeah, it's
he's been chewing poison ivy, and then I decided to draw him.
He's had an allergic reaction to some squidding pasta.
Well,
there we go, Jaguar.
We've torn that.
You can have that for now. It's edition 1977. Tremendous car.
I know.
Now, look, guys, listen.
Here's the situation. Look, picture this.
I've done some actual journalism because last week I was bitching about the cars in the TV series The Gold and how particularly there was an inaccurate Granada. And then I thought, I'm intrigued to know more about this. We had loads and loads of emails from people about this, and some people pointed out some other inaccurate cars in other shows, but mostly people going, "Oh, I'm glad I'm not the only one." I pointed out there was an inaccurate Granada to my wife, girlfriend, partner, whatever, and they told me to shut up, you boring bastard, was the general theme of things, and that's fair enough. But, Smith & Sniff is a safe space for people to air their nerdy grievances. So we all agree that Granada was wrong. But I thought, I don't want to leave it there. So I tracked down the guy who supplied the cars to The Gold, and I messaged him and said, from Smith & Sniff, we're a car podcast, we've had a lot of messages about the wrong Granada in that show. Is there some story to it? Why did you use that car?
Yeah.
And he's explained, it's sort of, as I kind of alluded to last week, that it feels like, the production designers just don't put enough care into cars.
Into the authenticity, yeah.
So, in fairness, this chap, Michael, he supplies cars to TV shows. That's his business. But he doesn't have ultimate say over what cars are used. If the show wants something, he supplies it. So when I said, what's the story? Why was it the wrong model of Granada for the year? He said it was a production/art department decision. I believe it was to give a different look, as many Mark IIs have been used before. So, but some production designers just went, I want that one, it looks cool. And that's how we ended up with the wrong Granada.
Because we're funny you say that, because my brother, who doesn't listen to our podcast whatsoever, I had him over for dinner a few nights ago, and he said about The Gold, because he'd been watching it, and I still haven't, I was just watching the advert. He mentioned it immediately, went, who are these? He said, these fuckwits, they've got the cars and the vans wrong. Why have they done that? It's just such an easy thing to get right. And I said, bloody hell, have you been listening to a podcast? He went, no, of course I haven't. I said, I just know. So I thought, there we go. I was going to get, I think I might get that one. I think I might put that one in one of the reviews of our podcast. That we're definitely accurate on car facts, but my brother doesn't listen to it, so.
Yeah.
And all that.
The chap who supplied the cars to The Gold, after we'd been discussing this, he messaged me back because he'd suddenly thought of an additional point that he wanted to make, which was that the robbers used a Ford Transit. As we were saying last week, he picked up on the same thought. The robbers used the Ford Transit and loaded it with 300 kilos of gold plus themselves. An excellent example of British-made quality engineering. I'm now reading a book about The Gold. I've got a bit obsessed with the Briggs robbery after watching that show.
You've got to say it in a much more kind of like henchman from East London or South London way, I think. The Gold.
The Gold.
Is it The Gold? The Gold.
The Gold. Go get the gold.
Go and get the gold, or I will slap you like a meaty glove puppet. All right.
I'd read something that said they didn't even have a van when they showed up. They had an estate car. They realised, because for people who didn't hear last week or haven't seen this show, that the robbers went in to nick other stuff from this vault near Heathrow Airport, and the gold they found by chance and realised they'd hit
lucked
pay
out.
Dirt.
I didn't know that. Okay, so they weren't fully prepped for gold quantities of that level.
Yeah. So the story I'd read somewhere else was that they turned up, they had to go and get a van. So what was supposed to be a real kind of smash and grab, a get in and get gone, actually took 2 hours in the end.
But they still got away with it.
Still got away with it. But the book that I'm reading, which seems to be pretty well researched and pretty detailed, says that they turned up with a transit. But then, and bear in mind, no one really knows because the security guards at the vault were all blindfolded and there weren't any witnesses. It was a Saturday when they did it as well, so there's no one really around on a trading estate near Heathrow. So there's a lot that the police just still, to this day, don't know, but they believe because they found the transit abandoned in another part of London.
Is your neck hurting?
After the robbery. But there's some suggestion they did go and get another van, but what they did was they had the transit, they realised that it wouldn't take 3 tons of gold. So someone ran off and nicked or got another van, and it was the suggestion is it was possibly a comma van.
Oh, a comma PB, like the one I used to have.
Well, I know, but then you think of that and you think of one of those with even, I don't know, like half a ton of gold in the back of it.
Oh, but awful.
Handling is going to be pretty sketchy, I would think.
Oh, the narrow track front end would have none of that. Would have none of it.
No.
You'd be going into a corner a little bit hot, in brackets, 24 miles an hour. And, it'd be wibbly wobbly. It'd be like, it'd be like a really pissed up rugby player with a tray of drinks diagonally running across the dance floor. You know,
they're sort of, they're going over it. It's just a question of when.
He's on the imaginary cruise liner because he's had so much to drink. He feels like he's on a ship, but he's got this massive tray of drinks. We've all been there where you think that you're on a ferry and you're not. You're just in a club. And you've just had enough to drink. Everything feels a little bit like the sea. And you're sailing. Sailing.
Everything's the sea.
You're skimming across the dance floor, but actually you're walking at 45 degrees, almost crabbing. But you've got a lot of drinks, like 10 pints worth.
Do you have that sort of target fixation problem where it's like you could see a chair coming, but you're powerless to move yourself out of its path?
Oh, awful. Yeah, it's awful. And you can't lose the drinks because it's not the amount of money you'd lose, it's the time at the bar taken to acquire 10 pints in a busy club environment. And your mates will not see the funny side unless you cascade all these drinks straight onto a slippery dance floor, and then everybody goes down. It's suddenly you've created a sort of like a hoppy Centre Parks.
Like a sticky shit foam party.
It's like if Stella Artois did Centre Parks. It's just
lager froth.
I was going to say it is. And everybody just ends up quattroing and then do in one... because there's strobe lights on. You haven't quite seen exactly what's happened and you're a bit pissed yourself in mid-dance.
Oh, God.
Mid-dance, you go into this full scrabble.
Watching someone go over with a tray of drinks under the strobes is just like terrible stop-frame animation of a rugby player having an accident.
It's fully pissed Wallace and Gromit, isn't it? Yeah.
Pissed Wallace and Gromit. They never got that one off the ground.
You can imagine though, sort of a Britpop Wallace and Gromit, where it's a bit of lads.
Wallace is just sitting there reading Loaded magazine.
Yeah, he's got
drinking Stella from a can,
shouting at Liam Gallagher and Frank Skinner. Wearing a little bit of flat link jewellery on with his tracky top.
It's right. Wait, did you see that episode where Wallace was dating one of the Appleton sisters? It was very weird, but
that's right.
That was for different times.
There were many other things I was supposed to say, and I've just lost track of them all of a sudden. I've got a very dry throat. Hang on.
I was going to ask you about the expression "take it for a spin."
Okay,
which I just don't think people say anymore. Have you ever heard it?
No.
I don't. You went to test drive a car.
Take it for a spin, yeah.
Go on, take it for a spin. Just not something that's said anymore, unless it turns out your Autocar's Twitter account, because I saw them using it the other day, and I was like, what a delightfully old-fashioned expression that is.
Is it almost partridgey now?
I suppose it is. Yeah. I don't know. I just associate it with sort of the past.
Yeah.
It's, like we were saying a while ago about no one says souped up anymore.
No. Does anybody say taking it for a raz? Nobody says that anymore, do they? Is anyone razzing cars
sort of fallen
about?
out of favour. I don't know. That's more recent, but also you're right, slightly out of date.
No, I think take it for a spin. The problem is implications that you're borrowing your friend's car and it's going to go backwards through a hedge within 5 minutes, and then you're going to spend the next 3 years paying it off for them. So I immediately fills me with dread.
I don't understand the origins of take it for a spin, because it does suggest a loss of control rather than just.
Well, maybe that's what they.
That's what test drive.
Maybe that's what they're looking for. Your friend says. Under their breath, they go, oh yeah, take it for a spin. And they go, please crash it because I don't like it and I want the insurance money. and it's just like it's a company car that they don't like, and they go, go on, bin it into the verge. Yeah, I take it for a spin. Put it out to the listeners, Richard.
Well, I was going to say, does anyone say that? And also, can you think of a more old-fashioned expression that you used to hear a lot and now you just don't?
If you're the Autocar Twitter feed, don't write it.
I would say let's keep it to car terms, otherwise we'll be here all year with people going, oh, you never hear anyone say in his cups anymore. And then you have to go, well, no, because there's not a war on. But if there's old-fashioned car expressions, well, I suppose there is. But I was going to talk to you about something else as well that occurred to me the other day. I'll tell you what I was going to tell you, just because it's of no consequence whatsoever. But guess what I saw yesterday that gave me a proper kind of, where I actually, thankfully, I was on my own in the car. But I properly exclaimed to myself, because I saw a Mercedes 500e.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is a rare car.
That is a rare groove.
But it's also that I like the fact that it's a quite a spotter's badge car, because a normal person would just go, look, there's a slightly old Mercedes saloon. I clocked the flared front arches.
I was just about to say.
They sit really well. They've got a good stance on them, haven't they? And I was just like, straight away, I was like, it's not, it bloody is. And then,
subtle.
Left-hand drive. Lovely, subtle, sweet, subtle car.
Lovely, sweet, subtle. Do you know they are? They're a real sleeper. Nobody really... Most people don't clock them and probably don't care. No, I love them.
Have you ever driven one?
No, I've never driven one. I've got a friend that's got one.
What?
Yeah, and he did say, I don't use it that much. You should borrow it. I have thought, yes, I bloody should. God. I should borrow it. And actually, that car cave that I did on the Late Break Show recently, he had an E400 or a 420 as they call it, which is a later one, isn't it? And and that was exceptional.
But I don't know, were they not Mercedes made rather than Porsche made?
Correct.
Because the 500s were made by Porsche, weren't they? Which is part of what sort of makes them sought after and special. But
that's exactly it. E500. Well, I did that guy's Mercedes car cave the other year, didn't I? Who has his own private museum, and he had an absolutely flawless E500. I just kept gawping at it because it's the subtleties which make it so appealing.
That's the thing. And if you know your stuff, you spot that they just sit differently. But then if you saw one next to a normal W124, they look really sort of muscular and mean.
Yeah.
There's just something about them. It's really weird. Part of the reason I was going to mention this to you is that because I saw the 500e yesterday, and the day before, I had actually been looking at pictures of 500es because I was writing a thing for Evo about the Porsche 989, which was a four-door V8 powered Porsche that they were developing in the late 80s, early 90s.
Not that weird coach-built four-door 911 thing.
No. I mean, this looks like a bit like, much of the design, you can see elements of the 996 in it, but this was designed the design sign-off was in 91, and they were quite far down developing it to the point where they'd built some engineering mules, and they'd used Mercedes 124 coupes.
Oh, I do like those. Saloons. I do like those.
I wonder if it was a body rigidity thing.
I've never owned a 124 coupe.
They're so elegant,
and they were so cheap for a long time. And I kept and I miss my 320 TE Spalt line. That car was really good. I don't think I realised how many good options it had on it. It was really good. And,
desirable Spexer as well, 300 Sportline. Ooh.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm sure the listeners can verify this. Some cars don't feel fast because you forget how long the throttle is, and what it's always trying to do is make you drive smoothly and carefully. And then every so often you'll go, I've been using 1/10 of the throttle for the last week. I wonder what it's like if I use the other bits. And you go, oh my God, this thing actually goes. It's alive.
Yeah.
But the throttles on those are so stiff. You actually do leg exercises to put it all the way down. They are ridiculous. And they're quite an acquired taste.
I've just looked on Car and Classic. There's a 500e for sale in Kent.
I bet there is, and all that.
It's blue. It's got... This is nice. I want more of this. It's got leather bolsters, but the centre panels of the seats are cloth, check cloth.
Yep.
Looks mega.
I love...
And the whole thing looks mean as fuck on the outside. It's a proper naughty car.
If you pick that up...
Because if you know, you know.
If you pick that up today, if you just phoned up and bought it and said, I'm on the train, I'm on my way... What would be the first cassette or CD that you put in it? What would be the sort of opening track to E500 ownership? Can you think of something off the top of your bonds?
This is a 91 car.
Yes.
But not that that's relevant. I sort of feel like there's something still quite 80s about it.
Oh, it's because it's that 80s shape, isn't it? It's still an 80s car, really.
I can just hear the intro to Small Town Boy on a loop in my head for some reason, but that might be unrelated. But
that's cool.
Yeah, this is a mega car and beautiful detail. It's debadged.
Factory.
Absolute filth. Well,
because you probably could delete option the badge. It's
you always could on Mercs, couldn't you? So I wonder. I hope it was factory because then you know it was ordered by somebody.
Yeah.
And didn't
they put it in a packet in the glove box? I'm sure they did, so that if you change your mind, or the next owner goes, I actually do want to tell the world I've got an E500.
Yeah.
You simply get it out, 3M it on, and off we go.
Yeah. Do you remember in the late 90s, the Mark IV Golf GTI, in the UK, there was a 2-tier GTI range. There was the full 150 horsepower with a red eye.
Yes.
On the GTI badge.
I do remember that.
And then there was a sort of not as good
easy listening
silver
version.
GTI badge. Yeah. There was just, I can't remember how much horsepower
it was a bit quilty.
115 or something. Yeah, a bit quilty. I don't think it had the same suspension even, because it was in fact just the Golf 2 litre in Germany.
Yeah, it was a bit...
It was only in the UK where they went, let's do an easier to insure GTI. And a friend of mine got one as a company car, and when it turned up, the GTI badges used to come from the factory in the glove box, and it was up to the dealer to put them on, which they were supposed to do. But she got her car, and she went, oh, look, I've still got this badge in the glove box. The dealer said they don't put it on because then it stops your car getting nicked.
Great idea.
And I had one of those sort of horns of a nerd dilemma where I was like, do I tell her it's because it's not really a GTI and this is just a UK-based con? I didn't want to spoil her enjoyment.
No, don't rain on
because she was going around going, I've got a Golf GTI. Yeah, don't be a dick about it. We should probably stop this because we've been talking for an hour.
Have we?
So yeah.
Oh gosh, I haven't even got to talk about the BYD that I'll review.
Save it till next week.
That lovely Chinese car that every time I say BYD, in my head I sing PYT by Michael Jackson off of the Thriller album and all that.
Yes.
PYT.
Out of the Thriller album.
Off of the Thriller album. Pretty young thing, isn't it?
Doesn't BYD stand for Build Your Dreams?
It stands for BYD, but you got to sing it like PYT. PYT. Diddle-doo-doo-doo. Although my brother used to say PTO because that's power takeoff, isn't it? So you think that Michael Jackson's just talking about agri equipment all the time.
Or BYO.
Oh yeah,
the thing.
Yeah, that's another thing. He
restaurants.
Yeah, and all that. And someone said that in the most recent podcast that we've done, we haven't said on that side of things at all. So I need to apologise to everybody who, past and present, who has, I don't know, suffered from a low quantity of on that side of things, otsots.
Yeah, it's funny. It's what a strange thing to complain about, but yeah, we will do more of that on that side of things next week.
We will. I might actually phone up non-stop talking John and maybe record the phone call for some inspiration and see if I can get some anecdotes from the horse's mouth. From the horse's mouth.
All right, well, that's all for next week. But for now, before we go, I have three things to tell you. They are: one, Johnny has a solo YouTube channel. It's called the Delegate Frakes Show, in which Johnny gets the man who played Commander Riker in Star Trek The Next Generation to do various car caves tests and interviews because he can't be asked. This week, Jonathan is checking out a lockup in Rotherham containing a Honda Ballard because Johnny's got something else on. Thank you to Michael Howard, who's a listener, who sent that one in, which we do get sent these still, and a lot of them seem to be on the same theme, usually involving the word lakes, but that one really tickled me. So
you're all bastards, can I say that? That's
We will stop this at some point. We'll have to. There aren't that many words that rhyme with late or break. The real show is, of course, the Late Break Show. It's on YouTube. Go there now. Watch Johnny's review of The Beast. It's excellent. There's also what else have you got there that I was watching?
Well,
that was interesting.
Well, we've the last couple of videos. You've got the collection of 80s and 90s AMG and Brabus Mercs that this guy likes his quirky. Got like my Honda Element.
Oh yes, the Element,
which is just a brief history about the Element and why I bought one. And by the time you listen to this, there'll be a review of the first BYD Chinese car, the BYD Atto 3, which sounds like a sort of B-side Star Wars character, but actually quite a surprising car, and one of the few cars I've driven in the UK having to test in snow. So that was interesting.
Did they organise the launch for that at Simon Le Bon's house?
Well, it was quite a lavish house on overlooking a man-made lake. I don't know if it was Simon Le Bon's. Have you noticed how Simon Le Bon looks like a fat version of Simon Le Bon these days? I'm just going to put that
out. Another car journalist told me that they went on the Beard Atto 3 launch, and it was at the house in Bedfordshire that's owned by Simon Le Bon.
Oh, I can find out.
Because there was a sort of a slightly mistaken bit of communication, because they said they went looking for the loo and ended up in this massive boiler room, machine room thing. But and which it seemed like they were saying that they'd done a poo in Simon Le Bon's boiler room. Bit unacceptable, isn't it? But
well, it'd be a lot cleaner than the ones I've had to cable into recently in grubby garages.
Meeting you with a poo in my boiler room. Anyway, the second thing I've got to tell you. Got to stop this. Before we go there, seriously, the second thing I've got to tell you is I've got some books out. Go and buy them, please. One of them's called Boring Car Trivia. And the third thing I've got to tell you is that Wall's Viennettas are made in Gloucester.
Are they?
Yeah, always have been.
Those ruffled shirts, but this is before Austin Powers came out, I always used to refer to them as Wall's Viennetta shirts. Sort of, that Meatloaf Bat Out of Hell spec shirt. Operatic.
Guess how many Viennettas the factory in Gloucester can make every minute?
Minute?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to say 200.
Oh my God, you're exactly right.
Is that true?
Yeah. That's a lot, don't you think?
That's a lot. I don't know how I guessed that. At the time, I was just staring hard at my cup of coffee, which says I love Enya on it.
Talking of mugs, thank you to Neil Williams at Tin Long Garage in Llanfair. I've lost track of where I am with that one. Llanfair PG, who sent us a couple of mugs from his Volvo garage that we'd mentioned before with the incredibly long name. And they're beautiful because the name of the village goes all the way around the mug.
That's
thank you, Neil. That's really kind. We will send you some of our merch in return once we've got our stuff.
Neil, can you just check around the back for any trade-ins? I'd like some fairly ropey, baggy Volvos. Can we just give us? Maybe we'll come over one day and we'll do a road trip to buy a very short MOT Volvo off you.
All right. Well, in the meantime, that's quite enough of this. But thank you ever so much for listening. We'll do it all again next week. Until then, goodbye.
Bye now. I started to brush my teeth listening to Iron Maiden again. It's good.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you'd ever stopped.
Yeah, well, for a couple of weeks I stopped.
Why would you?
I was watching other pop videos and things, but it didn't feel right.